Hello, my name is Leah, and for this internship video presentation, I decided to show my website where I have a page dedicated to my Biosphere 2 internship, and I will be sure to link my website below. It's at leahcrocker.wixsite.com/biospheres for research. What I did was I made a photo gallery of everyday experiences and other interesting photos that I took while I was interning with the Ocean Project at Biosphere 2 from May to August of 2019. And how I got this internship was because I was working with the Biosystems Engineering Club on a project at Biosphere 2 with their ocean team. So all I did was ask if I could continue the work from the project as an internship over the summer, and they said, absolutely, we're going to need some help with our research for the summer. So I was on a team of marine scientists. I was the only engineer on this team of ocean scientists, so I was in a very unique position to suggest creative engineering solutions to their controlled environment systems that the ocean team was responsible for. So I link here the Biosphere 2's Ocean Project. If you click right here, it'll take you to the Biosphere 2's website where they'll talk all about their reef project if you want to know more about what we were doing and the history of the Biosphere Ocean. I give day-by-day descriptions of what I did. Here's my first day of learning what daily tasks I had to do. For instance, we fed the koi fish in the aquaponics system, replaced rocks for the urchins at the beach, and we placed a trap for minnows in the rainforest. So here's a picture of our first attempt at trapping minnows. This was very interesting. So the rainforest is about to do a drought experiment, and they have to drain the pond. So we were trying to save the minnows living in this pond. And here's Franklin with a crayfish trap as our first attempt, but that did not work. And then later we tried to use a net, and this is the hose that's letting out all of the water from the draining pond, and we're hoping to catch fish as the water drained, but they weren't coming out, and then all we were getting was mud. And so our next attempt was to go right to the valve underneath the pond, and we finally caught some. Not all of them survived, but we had some that we saw swimming, and so we were very hopeful. So here's the aquaponics system that I worked with. So it's a staircase design that has koi fish in the back here. And this is one of the most interesting things that people say they enjoyed while taking the tour of the biosphere, because it's easy for them to understand and it's applicable to their lives. This is a garden that they could build in their own backyard. So what I had to do every day was feed the fish back here, add water to this bucket here, 10 gallons every day to account for evaporation of the system. And here is a dwarf lemon tree, which is one of the most interesting things here. Here's me down on the beach. This is how I cared for the tide tank, and this day was a less exciting day where I was just cleaning things up and making it more of a presentable area, since this is where we take kids for educational outreach programs. Some days were more exciting, like the day we were trying to catch those fish, and some days are less, where I'm just trying to find things to do and cleaning up. And here's one of my favorite systems at the Biosphere. So this is the mangrove, and this is the algal turf scrubber. So water from the mangrove is being filtered through this raceway that is growing algae on these racks, and as the algae grows, it's uptaking the nutrient pollution from the water, and then when you remove the algae completely from the system, you've removed the pollution from the system. And that was built by the University of Maryland, and I link their video of them putting it together down there. I often was in the analytical lab, and at first Erica and I learned how to use the colorimeter, which is this little thing right here, and it's just a tiny spectrometer that we use to analyze the nutrient levels in the ocean and the mangrove from samples that we take. Here's an inside picture of the tide tank. Here's a little sea urchin, and we could take them out and we can show them to people that are visiting on the beach and say, here's an example of an invertebrate that's living in the ocean. And then I have to look at these rocks and see if they have enough algae on them, and if they don't, then I take them out, I look around for a rock with algae on it, and I plant them in the tank so the urchins can have something to eat. I also did a lot of data collection. So here, for example, is me adding up how much algae was removed during a hand dive algae pull that a lot of the team members did the day before, and I calculated the total weight of algae removed as approximately 1,300 pounds of algae. I was also responsible for taking care of things in the ocean gallery, which is where you can go see an underwater view of the ocean. Here's Erica diving to collect samples. And we also have some fish tanks down here where I feed those fish, and I just make sure that from an underwater view, it looks like things are running properly in the ocean, like these vents are still running. Here's a picture of our lab. At this point in the summer, around June, Erica had to go back to Brazil, and I was by myself in the lab. And then we had Jake come in from Cincinnati, and Jake worked with me to do the lab work, so it went a lot quicker when he was there. And we also worked to calibrate this sensor. So that's the YSI sensor. It's an oceanographic water quality monitoring system. So it has a lot of different sensors on it. It's also called CDT for conductivity, temperature, and depth probe, or a sonde. So here's a photo of how they're usually deployed in the ocean. They'll be dropped at different depths and measuring all these parameters you see on the screen. And so that day, Jake and I helped Katie calibrate the sensor, and it's really cool. It's the biggest sensor I've ever seen. And this is the beginning of the Coral Reef Raceway being assembled, and that's going to be a really cool part of the project. And I was thinking about how I can contribute my engineering skills with Raspberry Pi to monitor the system. Here's an update on the turf scrubber after a month of it running. That's a lot of algae in there, so they're cleaning the water very nicely. I also thought that I could develop a Python model to analyze the algae growth in the system, because what we had realized was after that algae pull, we had stirred up a lot of the sediment and spores, and we got an algae bloom. So it's really good to know what nutrient information is going on in there, which is why the lab work that I do was important. But I also wanted to help out by running a Python model that could analyze the growth of the algae and predict it, because I had written something similarly for a class, biosystems analysis. To do this, I'd have to collect more data, such as like the light intensity at certain depths. So here's my conclusion. My biggest takeaway was that you can do anything you want to do, really. And I don't think I'd be able to get as close to doing the kind of work that I would want to do as I have with my experience at the Biosphere. So I absolutely recommend this internship. I recommend that if you see something that you want to do, just ask. It doesn't always have to be an application you fill out. You can do some networking, join clubs, get to know the people that you want to work with, and ask them for opportunities, and they'll give them to you if you show you've got the work ethic for it. So in conclusion, you should definitely look at my website, because this was not enough time for me to really describe everything that goes on here, and I talked a lot about really cool stuff that I'm sure other biosystems engineers would be really interested in knowing. So I really recommend you visit my website and learn more about this. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.